Today is the 2nd of March. Welcome to Voice of British Orthodoxy. We have a few saints today. Our first saint is Saint Chad, also known as Cedd, and he is from the 7th century. His icon is here, and he is also the patron saint of Birmingham. I don't know if that ever actually comes up, but... Saint Chad was a native of Northumbria, brother of Saint Cedd of London, bracket 26th of October, pupil of Saint Aidan at Lindisfarne, and later studied in Ireland. On his return to England, he was made abbot of Lastingham, where he became known for his ability as a pastor in the holiness of life. During Saint Wilfrid, 12th of October, absence in France, Saint Chad was a regularly consecrated bishop of the Northumbrians, with his see at York in Saint Wilfrid's place. However, upon Saint Wilfrid's return, Archbishop Saint Theodore of Canterbury, 19th of September, denied the legitimacy of Saint Chad's consecration. And with great humility, Saint Chad accepted this decision and retired to Lastingham. I can actually quickly bring up the quotes. His quote, I don't know if it ever actually comes up on here, but if you decide that I have not rightly received the episcopal ordination, I willingly lay down the office, for I have never thought myself worthy of it, but under obedience, I, though unworthy, consented to undertake it. And I'm going to scroll down for the benefit of all of you that are reading this. Impressed by his action, St. Theodore regularized his consecration and made him Bishop of Lichfield. St. Chad was a tireless evangelist and journeyed as far as North Lincolnshire in spreading the gospel, and is said to have founded the monastery at Barrow. St. Chad reposed AD 673 during the Great Pestilence, leaving behind a reputation for zeal and devotion. He was buried at the cathedral in Birmingham, where his relics are preserved to this day. The group chat entry is... St. Chad, bracket Cedd, Bishop of Lichfield, England, 672 AD, in brackets. So the 672 AD is in brackets. First Bishop of Lichfield and a key figure in the Christianization of Mercia. It doesn't say this on here, but as an extra note, he is considered the apostle to Mercia, or I guess since we're Orthodox, equal to the apostles of Mercia. Equal to the apostles, St. Chad, Bishop of Lichfield. There we go. His brothers were Saints Cedd and Cinnable. Born in the 620s in Northumbria, he was educated at the monastery of Lindisfarne under St. Aidan, and later studied in Ireland at the monastery of Rathmelsigi, which in brackets says Malfunt. Under St. Egbert, he succeeded his brother St. Cedd as abbot of Lastingham in North Yorkshire, after Cedd's death in 664 AD. About the year 664, Chad returned to England and was ordained priest, while Egbert remained in Ireland. In the same year, Chad's oldest brother, St. Cedd, who had founded and ruled the monastery of the Mother of God in Lastingham in Northumbria, now a village in North Yorkshire, died of the plague, and Chad succeeded him as abbot. As abbot of Lastingham, Chad became famous as a holy man, meek in conduct, versed in the Holy Scriptures, and zealous in putting the words of the gospel to life. In the same year, he was consecrated as Bishop of York by Bishop Winnie and 2 bishops from Wales. According to Bede, in his new post, Chad dedicated all his energies to maintaining the truth and purity of the church through humility, moderation, and learning. He walked from cottage to cottage, from settlement to settlement, visiting many villages, towns, and fortified localities in his diocese. Wherever he went, he preached the gospel, travelling not on horseback, but only on foot. In 669, the new Archbishop of Canterbury came to England. This was the Greek St. Theodore, aged 67, who was destined to unite the English Church and reconcile it with the British Church in Wales. After his arrival, St. Theodore set off travelling across the country, examining the dioceses and trying to put things in order where needed. Soon he learned that Chad had been consecrated irregularly, because the 2 Welsh bishops mentioned above were not reconciled with the English Church, and refused to comply with the decisions of the Synod of Whitby, bracket 663 to 664. For example, they still calculated Easter according to the lunar calendar, as opposed to the rest of the Christian world. Thus Chad was asked to leave his see, and Wilfrid was appointed as Bishop of York instead. The holy man immediately retired to Lastingham and wrote a gentle answer to Theodore. If you find my consecration wrong, I will gladly step down. Frankly, I always considered myself unworthy of it, and being unworthy, I only agreed to set this rank in obedience to the king's order. Okay, I mean, it's basically the same quote I said earlier, but interesting. Receiving this meek answer and learning about the piety and ascetic life of Chad, Theodore decided that Chad must not refuse the episcopate. Instead, he ought to be consecrated again in accordance with the canons. He was then appointed as the 4th Bishop of Mercia. He built a monastery near Lichfield. The Saint of God ruled his diocese for only 2 years and a half, but during that time, through the abundant grace of God, he achieved so much in bringing people to Christ and evangelizing the area that he later became known as the Apostle of Mercia. Among Chad's virtues enumerated by Bede are temperance, humility, self-denial, fervour in teaching, praying, voluntary poverty, and above all, the fear of God. Trumbert, a monk from Chad's monastery who subsequently became Bishop of Hexham and a mentor of Bede, told him much about the character of Chad. For example, whenever a strong wind started while Chad was reading in his hut, he would immediately call on the mercy of God and entreat him to have pity on humankind. If the storm got more intense, he would close his book, prostrate himself, and pray with more fervour. And if the wind turned into a thunderstorm with rainfall and lightning, which made the locals tremble with fear, he would go into his church and unceasingly recite psalms and prayers in quiet until the skies cleared. When asked why he did so, the saint used to reply, "The Lord disturbs the air, provokes the wind, sends thunder and lightning from heaven in order to call on us for the fear of God, to remind us of the last judgment, to make us suppress our pride, to crush our disobedience, and lead our souls to the great and terrible day. So, with all due fear and love, we must be mindful of his warnings through such signs in heaven. When it happens, we need to implore him to have mercy on us, to confess all hidden sins and vices in our hearts, and to cleanse our souls with all zeal." St. Chad is renowned for miraculous events involving true brothers, Wulfade and Rufine, sons of King Wulfhere of Mercia. According to the hagiographic account, the brothers were hunting a hart, which is a deer, when they encountered St. Chad praying in a forest. Struck by his holiness, they asked for his blessing and requested baptism into Christianity. After being baptized, they returned to their father, King Wulfhere, who, enraged by their conversion, ordered them executed. In remorse, the king later sought out St. Chad. He found him in prayer, surrounded by a blinding light. When St. Chad rose, he hung his chasuble, which is a liturgical vestment, on a sunbeam, a miraculous sight that symbolized divine presence. The king confessed his sins and was absolved, and promised to abolish idolatry and build monasteries in penance. St. Chad blessed a holy well in Lichfield beside his hermitage hut, and he used its water for baptisms. According to tradition, he would also immerse himself in his well at night for continual prayer, as did many other saints of the Isles. Its water was used for healing the sick of many physical and mental diseases. People from far and wide would flock to the modest hut and receive spiritual advice, consolation, instruction, and healing. His strong and meek words always touched people's hearts, and he kindled the desire for genuine Christian life in their souls. The saint healed many people during the epidemic of the plague, though he became a victim of the disease himself. By the way, if my memory serves correct, we went to that holy well back last year when we had our Slava for the Saints of Great Britain and Ireland. So if you want to see images of that, feel free to check out their reflections on that. Anyway, final paragraph of the group chat entry for St. Chad. Shortly before his repose, St. Owen heard an extraordinary singing from St. Chad's hut. Owen asked Chad about the unusual singing he had heard, and Chad replied, "These were the holy angelic powers that descended from heaven to warn me that they would return in 7 days to take my soul with them. But I beg you not to tell anyone before my death." And his words came true. He caught the plague and got weaker every day. On the 7th day, the holy man received communion for the last time, and his pure God-loving soul departed his body for eternal bliss. At the moment of his death, St. Egbert in Ireland, many miles away, in a vision saw the soul of St. Cedd, of St. Cedd, who had reposed 8 years before, ascending from paradise with an assembly of angels, and taking the soul of Chad with them in great glory. He has a Troparion somewhere. I will quickly find that. I know for certain he has a Troparion. St. Chad, Troparion, and Kontakion. I'm very confused. Because it's like, he should, Continue to the website. This is probably a festival service. I'm sorry, that's just... Okay, yeah, he has a Troparion. Receiving divine grace from God on high, and strengthened by the power thereof, O glorious Chad, thou didst treat the straight and narrow path of the gospel, and didst draw with the multitude of the faithful, wherefore, dwelling now in the mansions of heaven, thou hast received rich recompense for thy neighbours from Christ, whom do thou beseech to save our souls. And the Kontakion is down here, which is in tone 2. O boast of Lichfield, and glory of Mercia, disciple of the holy Aidan, and brother of the godly Cedd, by thine exalted humility thou didst ascend the mount of the virtues, by thine evangelical poverty thou hast enriched thy people. Wherefore, as thou dwellest in the uncreated light of grace, divine, O Chad, entreat Christ, the Son of righteousness, to illumine us all. That will be left in the description for you all. The next entry is... I mean, yeah, we can do Saint Slebin next. Also known as Slebin, and he is from the 8th century. An Irish monk who was monk at Iona. Saint Slebin served as its 15th abbot from AD 752 until his repose in AD 767. Forgive me. The group chat entry is Saint Slebin, brackets, Slybin Mac Congail. A monk from Ireland, he became abbot of Iona in Scotland, brackets, and then in brackets it says 767 AD. Our next entry is Saint Cinnabil, also known as Saint Cinnabild, and he is from the 7th century. A brother of Saints Chad and Cedd, and of Caelan, all of whom worked to enlighten England. Among their works was the founding of the monastery at Lastingham. Saint Bede the Venerable, who we commemorate on the 25th of May, comments on how unusual it was for 4 brothers to all enter the priesthood, 2 of them becoming bishops. The exact year of Saint Cinnabil's repose in the 7th century AD is unknown. And the group chat entry says, Saint Cinnabil, brackets, Cinnabild, a brother of Saints Chad and Cedd, brackets 600s AD, helped to evangelize the Anglo-Saxons in Northumbria. The next entry is for Saint Fergna, and he is from the 7th century. Called the White, he was a relative, disciple, and successor of Saint Columba, who we commemorate on the 9th of June, as abbot of Iona. Saint Fergna reposed as abbot of Iona AD 637. Saint Ferg, called the White, a relative and disciple of Saint Columba of Ireland, abbot of Iona, brackets 637 AD is the, what's called entry, the group chat entry. And according to this, we have a Troparion and a Kontakion for him. The Troparion is tone 4, blessed ascetic of Iona's Isles, thou didst strengthen the foundation of thy kinsman, Colum Kill, O righteous Verona, bring instability to Christ's holy church and salvation to men's souls. Kontakion of Saint Verona, tone 2. In the Western Isles, the flame shone forth brightly, and by thy tireless and ascetic labours, O bastion of orthodoxy, great Father Verona. Wherefore we bless thy name, praying for strength to show forth the same steadfastness in our lives. I have just realised I forgot once again to go to the thingy website, so I'm going to quickly go to that. I'm going to quickly go to that Substack, see if there is any resources for us for today. Why is it like this? There we go. Ah, okay. Never mind. Okay, I actually have to, in order to scroll down to today's date, I actually have to, okay, that's fine. I don't mind doing that. Right. For the 2nd of March, the only person that comes up is, Saint Chad, so at the very least, I can just cut the, in particular thingy and just paste it. Right. I believe this is... I think this is the exact same as boast of Lichfield. Receive in divine... Oh, okay, no. Okay, so this is actually a different Troparion, but the Kontakion is the same. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good to know. Right. The next entry should be for Saint Gistilian. Wait, what? Well... Okay, that's awkward. Okay, never mind. Next entry is for Saint Gistilian, also known as Gistilian, and he is from the 6th century. Saint Gistilian was the uncle of Saint David of Wales, 1st March, as well as a monk at Saint David's in Mercia. There is no further information on this saint extant. Saint Gistilian, uncle of Saint David and a monk at Mercia, or Saint David's in Wales, bracket 5th, 6th centuries. The next entry is... Okay, so that's actually the final... The next entry would have been for Saint Slebeny, but I read his entry just so we can actually... the next entries are only in the group chat and the book. I mean, in the group chat and the website. So, our next entry is for Saint Jovan, a Romano-Briton who went to Brittany to live with his uncle Saint Paul of Lyon, by whom he was consecrated bishop, bracket ca.570 AD. Basically the same entry, though they disagree on the year of death. The final entry in here would be for Saint Willock, a disciple of Saint Swiftbert who made him abbot of Kaiserwerth in Germany. Brackets 726 AD. And there we have it, everybody. That's today's saints. May they all intercede for us before the righteous judge. This icon, obviously, I normally use Uncut Mountain. Today, it was, like, probably about this big, roughly. So I was kind of like, I like to have the icon actually visible. This looks very similar to the icon that is sold at the Lichfield Cathedral, for any Orthodox that are looking to get one. There are some slight differences, like this little cross here is not on the thingy one, on the one sold at the thingy, and the colouring from the books is a little bit brighter, and I would probably say that the cloak he's wearing looks a bit darker, but outside of that, it's basically the exact same icon that's sold at the Lichfield Cathedral. Anyway, I'll leave the Troparion in the description for you all. I've been Riddle Azar, God bless you all, and Amen.